Believe it or not, there are easier ways to get your ideas from the real world into a computer. I do a lot of work with posters and t-shirt designs that are silk screened. I print them myself, and I've come up with a process to basically take found artwork or illustrations that you draw, like this type that I did, and this background that I found, and this cool vintage brain illustration, and put them together to make a poster like this. Now, I'm even wearing one of the t-shirts that I've created using this process. And so what I want to show you is it's about a 10 to 15 step process, but it's super easy to follow along. And it basically takes found artwork and converts it through Photoshop all the way into Adobe Illustrator vectors that then can be scaled, colored, and other things, other manipulation effects to make them able to be printed out as film for silk screening. So let's get started. Like I said in the intro, I do a lot of posters and silkscreen t-shirts, and I use this process of taking found art or things that I've drawn on paper and converting them into vector art that eventually is turned into film for creating silk screens. So to save some time, I've actually collected the artwork already, but often what you'll do is find things on the internet or maybe scan in a drawing or use your phone to take a picture of it and bring it into Photoshop. So let's start in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, I have this cool frame or texture that I've kind of cleaned up and filled in the middle because I want that solid. I have an illustration of a brain that I'm going to use. Some Sharpie marker type that I've drawn, and then to kind of tie it all together, I have a collection of these papers that I use to make things actually look like they're printed on old paper. Let's begin with the paper. So here, usually we want the file to be a really large file, and but it sort of depends on how much detail we want. In this one, since the background is in just a frame, I think the size of this is probably good. Let's check that out though. Go to image size. Yeah, it's about. I'll pull it on the screen. It's a pretty good size, 24 inches. You really don't want to go below 20 inches, and it's 300 dpi, so that's cool. Click OK. And what the tool I use to actually the first step is selecting the color. When I want super high detailed images, I create bigger images but that are high contrast black and white. We're going to move on to that one next. But first with this one, since it's okay, we are going to go to select, and we got to be on the layer. Go to select color range. It'll come up with a little panel that looks like this. I think it's got the red selected already because I did that when I was testing out the files. If you select another color like the white, the white areas are what are selected. So I'm going to click on the red. It's selected. It gives you a little marquee, shows you what parts are selected. It looks good to me, and we're going to go to path next because this is where we're going to create the vector path. And in here we are going to make this a work path. Keep this number low. 2 is usually the default. I would stick with that. It takes a minute or two for it to process. And now you can see all the vector points that have been drawn. And it's pretty good. It's missed some of the colors there, but that's probably for this type of design. It's not that important. We're going to call the path a path 1 just for now, just so that we don't lose it. That's really easy to lose these paths if you keep them named work path, because as soon as you create another path, it'll delete the original work path. And then finally what we do with this is we're going to export it and export the paths to Illustrator. It'll give you a list of paths. We only have one, so we'll click OK. And cool. Make sure it's in a, see, we don't want it there. We want it in our projects. Brain poster project. There we go. With our master files. Cool. And it's in there now. And we'll get to the conversion process of moving that into Illustrator in a second. I like to process all of these at once really quickly. Here we have a brain. Let's zoom out on that. There we go. It's blue on a cream color. So what I'm going to do with this one, because I really want to get some of these details, if you zoom in, they're a little blurry now, but and you get some of these JPEG artifacts. I want to pick up a lot of these rough details. So what I'm going to do, instead of using the select color of picking like a red color or blue, in this case the blue color, I'm going to convert this to image mode and go to grayscale. And flattening is fine. Discard the colors. So now I have, sort of a high contrast image here. The next thing I like to do is go to adjustment and go to curves. Some people use levels. I like curves better. I think I have a little more control with things in curves. Everyone wants more control, don't they? Particularly control freaks. Anyway, so what I do is I pull up the darks, which is this. Grab this little graph bar to the right, pull those up to the top. That starts darkening the dark colors. And what I'm trying to do is build a high contrast image that I can get the details in. So, and you can shift it, this way and make it really dark. Kind of plugs things. Actually, really dark might be a good way to go with this one. But you could go really light if you just want some. To really, that's going to be a little weird, but it would work. It just would have very few parts showing up. We're going to go here. That's losing a little too much detail. There's no right or wrong to this. It's really just, how you want this artwork to look. This is a background image. It's going to be sort of it's going to be like on a red background with a slightly darker red tint to it. So let's click OK. And we got our points in there. Oh, the next thing, and actually we can do this in either order. We're going to check the image size again like we did on the first one. Again, it's actually 23 wide. Let's make this one 60. We really want to pull out the detail. And the bigger the pages that it's on, like 60 inches versus 23, the more detail will show up when you auto trace it. So we got everything selected. We're going to go back into our select color range. I'm going to click on the black color, and you can see it shows up as white. And then we click that. If we zoom in, we can see it's got some all this detail should show up. We're going to go back to paths up here and go make work path again. Click OK. This might take a second or two longer because it's really complex. Maybe 3 seconds longer. You tell a ghost story. Sing campfire songs. There we go. Yeah, you can really see if you zoom in these vector points. It's got all the detail. It's going to look pretty crazy. Yeah, look, it's, all this blue means you have ESP, and it means that the vector points are chosen. So again, we'll double click on that, save it as path 1. And then we're going to go back to export past Illustrator. There we go. It's going to create an Illustrator file. It's called Brain. The other one's called Brain Paper. There we go. Cool. We can close this. Yeah, sure, we'll save it. I might need it. I would close Brain Paper too. Yeah, we'll save that, just in case we need to come back to it. This one we are not going to convert or do it. You can. It's actually kind of cool what you can do with it, but we're not going to do that. But we will take this type. I took a photo of this to get it in the computer, and you can see the paper. It was on bright white paper with the bright white light, but when I shot the photo, the paper turned really gray. And kind of see the details are kind of schmutzing together, blurring together. What we want to do with this one again is adjust the image size. So right now it's 36 inches wide. I think we want to change that again to 60. Actually cancel. Let's do this so we save some memory and it doesn't go so slow. We're going to switch it to grayscale first. Flatten it. Discard the color. So now it's a grayscale image. Now we are going to go back to image size. We're going to change that to 60. Like I said, I sometimes even go up to 80 on some of these things. We're going to change the DPI to 300. Click OK. Zoom out. And it's still a little blurry. That helps with photographs, but for vector art, we want high contrast. So we go into adjustments, go to curves. Curves is very similar to levels. Some people use levels. Like I said, I like curves better. Who doesn't like curves better? People who like levels better, I guess. I'm going to really bump the contrast up in this. And because we want a lot of these details, like in this white area where the kind of grungy sharpness of the marker is, we're going to go a little lighter, bring out a little bit more of the white in the contrast. Maybe darken, pull this there a little bit. That's pretty cool. Okay, so now if you look, there's some like good chunky texture there. Chunky texture. And then we are going to go to our good old friend. Actually, we need to be on the right layer. We are. Go to our select color range. It remembers we did black last time. Click black again just to be safe. Make sure the fuzziness is like, this says 38. That's pretty good. But if it was like 100, it's going to start filling in things that you don't want to. So make it sure it's like between 20 and 40. Click OK. You can see the little ants crawling around here. It's got good detail. We're going to go back into paths panel here, and we will go to make work path. There, it's got some really good detail in there. Okay, and just in case if your paths panel isn't showing up, sometimes Adobe likes to manage things for you on a small screen. You can always pull it up in the window panel. It's their alphabetical order, and it's down near like about 2/3 to the way to the bottom. So cool, we got all our paths in there, and again, we are going to export this to Illustrator. There we go. Cool. And we're good. I'll save it again. We're going to close it up. And I will quit sorry, I'm in Photoshop. So I saved it to Illustrator, but we're in Photoshop. We're going to quit Photoshop, and we're going to open up Illustrator now. All right, we are in Illustrator now, and I just created a page that is HD size 1920 by 1080, but really we can pick any size. And in fact, my poster may not actually fill up the whole artboard. So one thing I'm going to do is switch it over to RGB color, because I like sometimes the way the effects work in RGB better than CMYK. RGB is generally used for TV, video, anything that's on screen. CMYK is generally used for printing, particularly commercial printing that's on a printing press, not necessarily to the your laser printer or Epson printer or something like that. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is open up our files that we traced. We got the brain paper. Let's start with that one. It's going to give you this AI file design. It's actually an older style of it's kind of like a universal style, default style for Illustrator. When we open it, it's give us these legacy things here. We'll click OK on that. We're just going to end up with this blank screen, or at least it looks blank. The art is actually, it's transparent right now, and it doesn't have an outline around it. So to see it, we're going to click Command Y. We can see all the detail. We're going to go select all with Command A. Got everything. And then the first thing I do here is go to Compound Path. And hit Make. What Compound Path does, it's all these little spots that are vector things up here are actually holes that show through the background of the paper. We want those holes to actually show up in the design. So I did that. It's still not filled with anything. Use your imagination. And I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to paste it on that new page we just created. There we go. It's a little big. I'll just grab one of these anchor points and shrink it down. And I'm going to open up the swatches panel, which I think is over to the side. Yeah, it went on the other screen. I work on two screens, so sometimes it's a little, I keep things on another screen. There we go. This is vector art now. It's no longer a Photoshop file. If I grab my toolbar, pull this over here and zoom in, can see, look at the detail in there. Really, really sharp detail. And you could enlarge this or shrink it down and it would not lose any detail. Unlike a Photoshop file that you would start seeing blurry sort of square pixels around all the edges. So next we're going to bring in our brain. Not this brain, but the one that's in the computer. And my brain's running a little slow this Saturday morning. It's Saturday somewhere. Maybe it was yesterday. Time and space have no meaning, really. Anyway, let's open up that brain file. There we go, brain. Cool. Open it up. Command 0 shrinks it down to the page. Then we go Command Y to see the outline of the brain. We select all, Command A, and then we're going to go back to our good old friend, the compound mask, click Make. Now the illustration will have transparent parts, and we're going to copy that. We're going to put that in our illustration as well. And I bet this comes in really, oh yeah, look at how large that is. So what we want to scale that down. I've got my toolbars. Let's go to Advanced Toolbar. Let's double click on the scaling tool. It's 100%. Let's make it like 30% and see what that does. That's a little smaller than that. Shrink it down a little bit smaller. I can see the blue outlines of the brain. Can't really see the brain on there. I'm going to do the eyedropper tool and grab the background color. Now the brain and the background color are the same color. But what I want to do is do the multiply effect in the transparency panel. Let's go into Window, go all the way down to the bottom of transparency. One of my favorite effects, the multiply effect. Basically, it's like combining two colors on top of each other. So it might be a little dark. Let's change this to maybe 50%. Let's see what that does. Oh, you gotta have that thing selected. 50%. Return. Let's go 30%. 30%. Return. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's get into what I want it to be. Scoot that around there. And now we're going to open we can get rid of this brain. But don't get rid of your brain. Everybody likes their brain. Maybe some people don't like the brain. Maybe they want to switch to somebody else's brain. So don't save that. And that's a piece of something I'm working on for something else. Then we want to open up that type that we made, the think type. There we go. Open that. Again, you can't see it because it's invisible, literally. Shrink down the page by hitting Command 0, or using the magnifying tool with the Option key. You can shrink it down to like nothing if you want. Command 0. Go back to that. Go to turn off the outline view. Turn on the outline view. Command Y. We can see our text. It's got like a really good texture in there. I like to call it chunky. Some good chunky texture. We are going to go do the compound path. Now you could do compound path on each individual letter, and then you would be able to like individually position them, jazz hands, individually position them on the screen. But for these purposes, we're just going to make compound path of the whole thing, and then move it on to the other page. So let's see, go to compound path. Oh, hit release. Hit make, and then copy it. Go onto our poster page, paste it in. This is probably going to be, it's gigantic. Double click on the scaling tool over here. 30%. That's pretty good. And we're going to make this white. So get our swatches are hidden over here. Swatches. There we go. Cool. Yeah, and now we could keep it white, or we could like add some other effects to it. One I did on an earlier piece that I really like, and it also gives it this really authentic printing feeling, is doing an offset of the color. So to do that, you can cut and paste it and shift things around, or you can select the object, then as you start moving it with the selection tool, grab press the Option key, and you can sort of see that it's going to be making a copy of it. And And we're going to fill that with registration black, which is this black here that is 100% of all the colors that you're using, either CMYK or RGB. So cool. And then the last thing we want to do is actually place that piece of paper in here that we had. So let's go into place. And oh, we got to track down the papers. Tracing, demo, teaching. There's paper. Let's see, which one is a good one? Got a whole bunch of different ones in here. Got the moldy paper. That one's a bit extreme. Let's go with just the regular old paper. Drop it on the screen. It's a little small. Oh. Uh-oh, can't see through the paper. And you could put it behind it and do some other effects, but you know what I am going to do is actually take this paper and use my good old friend transparency, go to multiply, and there we go. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Pretty simple process. I'll make a PDF. I think I might already have one for it to attach to the files. You know that brain in the background is a little too light. I'm gonna maybe darken that up a bit. Double clicked on the red here. I'm gonna make the red a little darker. Let's see what that does. Let's see how that looks. Oh yeah, that's pretty, well, maybe a little darker still. Double click on that. Yeah, look at that. That's really cool. So yeah, that is how you go from, and I'm going to lock this under objects so I can kind of poke around at things, dissect the brain, if you will. So yeah, I can kind of poke around on here. You can see the different elements that it's made out of, but they're all vectors. And then, you know, if we zoom in really, really close, like just keep, you can see the points there, but let's zoom in. Like, look at that detail. That's great, great detail. And that is great for printing. Like I said, these details will, you could blow this up to the size of a billboard, you know, 100 feet across, 50 feet across, whatever. The size of a T-Rex, the size of a school bus. And actually, if you wanted to wrap a bus with a vehicle wrap, this is one of the ways you would hold the resolution in your illustrations, is by converting them to vectors. So that's the conversion to vector process, and hope you enjoyed the video. There's more to come, and there's some from the past too.